Hello, everyone. The last module is on authentication. We are beginning today. The first topic is message authentication requirements. Now, first of all, let's look at what is authentication and what it is concerned with. Remember that authentication can be of two types. One is of the actual data. So that is similar to our message authentication. The other is the user can be authenticated. Devices can be authenticated. Okay, so here we are specifically looking at message authentication. So let's look at what it exactly message authentication does. Okay, one, it ensures that the message has not been changed once it has been sent. Okay, so it protects the integrity of a message. Two, with authentication, we are able to validate the identity of the origin. So if a particular sender claims to have sent a particular message, from the authentication process, we should be able to identify whether it is actually from that particular, sender. Okay, so it validates the identity of the originator. And three, message authentication allows for non-repudiation. What is non-repudiation? Non-repudiation means after having sent the message, or receive the message. Okay, repudiation of origin means sender cannot claim that he did not send a message if authentication is there. Okay, and if non-repudiation of destination is there, then receiver cannot claim that he did not receive the message. Okay, so here we are not looking at the non-repudiation of the destination. We are looking at non-repudiation of origin. Okay, so the sender cannot claim that he did not send the message. So this helps with dispute resolution. If there are any, disputes between sender and receiver, this helps. Authentication helps to resolve those disputes. Okay, and what are the different methods or functions that can be used? Three alternative functions can be used. Either hash functions can be used. We're going to look at each of these, or message encryption can be used, or MAC can be used. Today, we are going to look at encryption and MAC. Hash, we will look at in the next class. Okay. So what are message security requirements? What is the requirement of when a message is being sent? What are the security requirements for that particular message? One, nobody else should be able to read it, so it should not be disclosed. Two, when the message is being sent, traffic analysis, those are, passive attack. We have seen all this earlier. Okay, so traffic analysis should not be able to be done. Somebody else should not be able to masquerade as the sender. The content should not be modified. The sequence of the message should not be modified. Time at which the message was sent should not be modified. Source should not be repudiated. Neither destination should be repudiated. That means a person who has sent the message should not claim that they have not sent the message, and a person who has received a message should not be able to claim that they have not received the message. Okay, these are the requirements for a message to be sent securely over a medium. Okay, now let's look at authentication functions. We saw that there are three ways. One is hash, other is encryption, and third was MAC. So authentication functions are essentially encryptions. Okay, we've already seen symmetric encryption and public key crypto systems. So we are going to look at how these two encryption methods can be used for authentication. Okay, now for symmetric message encryption, it can also provide authentication. Okay, how it's going to provide? If the symmetric encryption is used for the purpose of authentication also, then since the key is shared securely, hopefully, and only the sender and the receiver knows the secret key, then if that is true, if only the sender and the receiver knows the secret key, then the receiver knows for sure that the message was sent by the sender. Okay, so inbuilt authentication is inbuilt. Okay, now the content of the message cannot be altered if the message has a suitable structure, it has redundancy or suitable checksums. There is a method by which we can check whether the message has been altered. Okay, if there is a proper structure where we can check whether the message has been altered, then the message content will also be having its integrity. Okay, so how this is done is shown over here. Encryption, which symmetric encryption providing both confidentiality as well as authentication. Okay, now all this hinges on the fact that the key is kept a secret. Okay, if the key is kept a secret, only source A can use this K to encrypt and send the message to M. So the authentication is done over there. And confidentiality, because it is encrypted with a key that is known only by the source and the destination, nobody else, even if they get this packet, they will not be able to decrypt it and use it. Okay, we've seen this earlier. It's just a normal symmetric encryption. Now, if public key encryption is used for authentication, then encryption, because it is a public key, private key combination, and public key is known publicly. Anybody can use the public key to encrypt a message. So the encryption itself does not provide any confidence in the sender. But if the sender signs the message using their private key, we've seen this earlier, okay? So what they're doing is they're signing the message using their private key and then encrypting with the receiver's public key and sending it. Here, both secrecy and if only I know my private key. So if I'm sending a message and I've signed it I have encrypted it first using my private key, then it shows that that particular message has come from me because I'm the only one who knows my private key. Okay, so there authentication of the sender is done. And then since it is being encrypted, the whole packet is the signed message is being encrypted by the public key, secrecy is also maintained. Okay, but here also we need to recognize if the message is corrupted, and there is another problem, 2 public key users are coming in. Okay, so we already saw earlier that public key encryption is much slower than the private key encryption. Okay, so every time we have a public key encryption, the size of the message also increases and the amount of time required to do the transaction also increases. Okay, but this particular process provides confidentiality, authentication, and signature. Okay, so what is happening? If A wants to send a message M, first he signs the message using his private key. Okay, so he encrypts first using his private key. And that encrypted message is then encrypted using the public key of the receiver. And that packet is sent to the receiver B. When he receives it, the first thing that he does is he uses his private key to decrypt the message that is given, but that is signed by PRA. So he uses the public key of A to decrypt and get the message. If he's able to decrypt using this public key of A, then it is understood that the message was sent by A. Okay, and here the confidentiality of the message is ensured. The sender is sending the message saying both that he is the one who sent it, and there is a signature also of the message. It's non-repudiation. He cannot claim that he did not send the message because he has used his private key to encrypt the message. Okay. Now, the problem with public key crypto systems is that every time you encrypt a message, the size of the message keeps expanding. Okay, because you're adding more and more components to that particular message. Okay, and this is because of the standards of PKCS for protection. Okay, so signing by encryption makes the size. So if instead of using a digital signature algorithm, if you use PKCS for signing, then it tends to make the size more than double. Okay, so that's the disadvantage of using PKCS for authentication and signature. Okay, now the next method is MAC. This MAC is like a hash function. So a function is used, a code is going to be generated by using the message as well as the secret key. So an algorithm is going to create a small fixed sized block. Okay, that is the MAC. And as input, you have to give both the message and a secret key. But unlike encryption, this MAC does not need to be decrypted. Okay, so when we are doing encryption, we use another, decryption algorithm to decrypt it. Here, MAC is just for verifying that this is sent by an authentic user. So we don't need to decrypt the MAC. What we need is, we need to check whether the MAC has not been altered. Okay, so this does not need to be reversible. Okay, now MAC can be appended to the message just like a signature. The receiver, when he receives the message along with the MAC appended, what he does is he takes the message portion and he regenerates, uses the same algorithm to once again generate the MAC. And then he checks the MAC that he has received and the MAC that was generated at his sent. If both the MACs are the same, then the message has not been altered and the message has come from the right person. Okay, so this provides the assurance that the message is unaltered and comes from the actual sender who claims to have sent the message. Okay, so a small fixed size block of data is generated from the message plus the secret key. So if C is the, code generating MAC code generating algorithm, then the input is a key K and the message itself M. And this MAC is, you can see over here, it is the message. This is the message. M is the message. And the MAC generated over here is appended. This sign means appended to this message. Okay. And the message plus the MAC is sent to the destination. At the destination, once again, the message and the key is given and the same algorithm C is used. The MAC is regenerated over there, once again generated over there. And then the generated MAC at the destination is compared to the MAC that was received by the, receiver. If both are the same, then both authentication and confidentiality is maintained. Okay. As shown, MAC provides authentication. Okay. It can also use encryption for secrecy. Okay. So in general, the separate keys are used for, this generation, this K and the encryption key K will be two different keys, should be two different keys. Okay. The MAC can be computed either before doing the encryption or after doing the encryption. But in general, you sign the document before you put it in the envelope. Okay. So the message is normally, the MAC is appended before the encryption is done. Okay. So that is the rules for if you require both secrecy as well as encryption. I mean, if you want to send them message secretly and have it signed. Okay, why use MAC? Okay, sometimes only authentication is needed. We just want to know, secrecy is not important. We just want to know that it was sent by the right person. And sometimes we need authentication to persist. Persist means we want that signature long after our message has been decrypted. Okay, later on, for maybe for some purpose where later on we want to prove that that particular message was sent by this user. Okay, so in both these cases, MAC is what is required. But remember that MAC is not a signature. Okay, it just does authentication of the sender. Okay, and because MAC is not a signature, you cannot say that because the MAC can also be generated by the receiver. The same algorithm can generate different, and you will see later on that this multiple messages have same MAC. So it cannot be used for non-repudiation. Okay, now the properties of MAC. A MAC is a cryptographic checksum. Okay, so it's just like a checksum, a code that ensures that changes when messages alter. Okay, so what does this C, the algorithm do, cryptographic checksum do? It condenses a variable length M using a secret key K to a fixed size authenticator. And it is a many-to-one function. Many messages can have the same MAC. What we need to do is the attackers should not be able to find different messages that will have the same MAC easily. So it should be difficult to find messages that will have the same MAC. Okay. Now, what are the requirements for MAC? Okay, taking into account the different types of attacks that are possible, MAC needs to satisfy these three conditions. One, knowing a message and MAC, it should be infeasible to find another message with the same MAC. That is one requirement. Second, MACs should be, that is, recurring MACs should be evenly distributed or uniformly, should be uniformly distributed. Okay, now, uniformly distributed means that the repetition of same MAC should be wide apart, okay, as wide apart as possible from the generation of that particular sequence, that is the size of that particular MAC code. Okay, MAC should depend equally on all bits of the message. Every bit of the message should be used in some way to generate the MAC. Okay, now we are going to look at the different security exploits possible with MACs. One possibility is brute force attacks. Okay, so strong collision resistance hash, which has a cost of 2 raised to m divided by 2. Okay, so the size of the message divided by 2, 2 raised to m divided by 2. And in general, a 128-bit hash, if it looks vulnerable, use at least 160-bit. Normally, it is 128-bit, minimum 128-bit. But if it looks vulnerable, use 160-bits hash. Okay. Now, MACs with known message MAC pairs. If we know message MAC, because we saw that it is not always necessary to encrypt the message. So it's possible that attackers have the message and MAC pair. Even in that case, the attack is possible either in the key space, that is, they can try to find out the key, or they can try to find out MAC of different messages. Okay, so in this case also, at least 128-bit MAC is needed for security. Okay, the next is cryptanalytic attack exploit structure. Okay, so other there are lots of variety of MAC, so it is not easy to generalize cryptanalysis. But normally, the structure of the MAC is what is attacked, just like block ciphers. Okay, now the key is when the MAC is being generated, the structure should be in such a way that the only option should be brute force attack. And since brute force attack takes a lot of time, this particular attack can be, to a certain extent, by increasing the size of the key, it can be infeasible, made infeasible. Okay, next is keyed hash functions as MACs. A MAC, this is a MAC based on hash function because hash functions are generally faster. And crypto hash function codes are widely available. Because of these two reasons, hash functions using a particular key can be used as MACs. Okay, so the hash includes a key along with the message. You can see over here, the original proposal was that keyed hash is equal to the hash function. You give input the key and the message. But some weaknesses were found in this. And so eventually HMAC, which we're going to look in after hash, HMAC was developed. Okay. Now, problem with keyed hash. This is the problem with keyed hash. We saw that keyed hash is equal to the hash function. We give key and the message. the hash function works on blocks. Okay, so if our message, look over here, okay, the message itself is going to be the key appended with the message and with any padding for the block size to be, enough. Okay, so if M is equal to M1, M2, there are L blocks. Okay, so M of I will be equal to the block size. Then the actual hash is going to be done like this. First, look up inner over here. Look at the cursor inside. The hash will be with, first it will be done on the first block with an initial vector or an initial value. Okay, so first the key is the initial value. Then M2 is going to be hashed with the previous hash value. So this hash value is the key for M2. Then this hash value is going to be the key for M3. So each time the previous hash value is being used as the key for the next block. Okay, so this finally L is going to be hashed with the hash of all the other previous blocks. Problem here is that somebody can easily add another block ML plus 1 by simply taking this hash value and doing a hash with this hash value and that ML plus 1. Unless there is a method where the formatting prevents this. Okay, but still HMAC is the best way in which we can prevent these kind of alterations from happening. And with this, we are closing today's lesson. As usual, if you have any doubts, please feel free to contact me and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.